Good morning, dear students. I am Professor K. Makeshwari, Department of English, KCS Kasinadar College of Arts and Science. Today, we are going to talk about Matthew Arnold. Matthew Arnold is one of the foremost critics of the 19th century. He is called as the father of modern criticism. There is a negative criticism on Matthew Arnold that Walt Whitman famously dismissed Matthew Arnold as a literary dude. However, the jargon seems to be of a low one. Walt Whitman considers Matthew Arnold as a literary dude. And Matthew Arnold laid foundation for important 20th century critics like T.S. Eliot, Cleanth Brooks, and Harold Blooms. Arnold's most significant thinking is contained in the essays of him like The Functions of Criticism at the Present Time and The Study of Poetry. Between these two works, the study of poetry gained much importance among the critics as well as the readers. In the particular work of The Study of Poetry, Arnold stresses the importance for literature of remaining, otherwise he calls them as disinterested. What does he mean by disinterested? Disinterested, it is nothing but a person who is politically detached and uncommitted to any specific program of action. He looks at those people and he wants those disinterested people to get happiness through literature. That's why he quoted, "The goal of literary criticism is that of attaining pure disinterested knowledge," that is, to use another of his favorite phrases, okay, which means any literary work is to be appreciated as the object how really it is. There should not be any sort of a subjective connotation to look into any literary work. Otherwise, no external force is needed to appreciate a critical work. That is very much important in the case of Matthew Arnold. According to Matthew Arnold, his poetry is very much concerned with high destiny. He believes that mankind will discover that we have to turn to poetry to interpret life for us, to console us, to sustain us as science is doing. Arnold belongs to the field of practical criticism. In practical criticism, it tends to look at the text in a close way. Otherwise, the close reading is an essential part in practical criticism. During the mid and late Victorian period, writers and critics gave importance to the critical analysis of the work of particular writers. By analyzing a work with the help of a close reading, there is a term emerged from Matthew Arnold. It is known as touchstone. So that Arnold's key literary critical device is the notion of the touchstone. Actually, this touchstone avoids any definition of desirable literary qualities, which means it does not talk about what is the literary quality of a poetry. Otherwise, what is the structure of a poem should be. It is not the concern of touchstone method, but it merely suggests that using the aspect of the literature of the past can be a mean of measurement to assess the literature of today, which means we can take the examples and samples from the great masters of the past literature to talk about the present literature. Or, in other words, in order to justify or criticize a present literary work, the works of the past are in need of. The way the touchstone work is concisely explained by J.A. Haddon. A touchstone is so called. Why a touchstone method is applied in literature? With the help of touchstone, the purity of the gold can be known to anyone. Likewise, Matthew Arnold uses this word in his essay, The Study of Poetry, in connection with literary criteria and standards. So, in his work, The Study of Poetry, which was written in the year 1880, Arnold advises that we should have always in mind lines and expressions of the great masters and apply them as a touchstone to other poetry. So, which means the lines and the phrases of the old masters can be a sample to test the quality of the present writer's writing. He suggests that his touchstone method should provide the basis for a real rather than an historic or a personal estimate of poetry. So, while using touchstone method, it should give only the real analysis of poetry, not the historical analysis or the personal estimate of poetry.